Hey everybody, Jared Wade from Yoko Co. here with Chris Yoko once again for another exciting, revealing, intuitive. I can't think of any other adjectives that would fit into what we're doing here. Chris, you got any?
Superlative. Are we overhyping it? Or are we trying to? I thought we were going to set the bar low so we could get over it very easily.
Okay, I like it. We'll just back up real quick. Hey, welcome everybody to a pretty decent version and episode of
Yoko. Go with it. That's fine.
We are talking about AI today. If you don't know what AI is, Chris, in one sentence, can you summarize what AI is?
Thinking robots. Nailed it.
See? That's it. We're done. We're going to just wrap up the episode right now and move forward. No, today we're going to be talking about AI. We're going to be talking about building personas. If you don't know what a persona is, you're going to learn about what a persona is, especially for your website. These are all incredible ingredients and ways to amplify your website and create something into your website that reaches out even further. So before we get jumping into personas and AI and all of that fun stuff, I've noticed that, Chris, you have changed your name to possibly AI. I know that I am totally human. What is the...
Do you though?
I think I do. I think I do. I have 5 fingers.
Have you seen Ex Machina?
Have I seen what?
Ex Machina, the movie?
I have.
Yeah,
oh, that's fair. Now I'm questioning everything.
Yeah, I said possibly. I'm not. As far as I know, I don't think I'm AI. If you believe in simulation theory, maybe all of us are AI.
Oh, dang. See, okay. So now we're going like down the Matrix Avenue type of a feel. All right. Well, this took a weird turn, but I like it.
I was being forthright and you tried to call me out on it.
You're right. You're right. I deserve it. I'll take the red and blue pill together. I'll just see what happens when I take both of them and then move forward. Yeah, so today is going to be fun because the last couple episodes we have done, we've kind of talked about how processes work. We've talked about communication. We've talked about how your website should probably, at least, we've encouraged the viewers and the watchers to think about their website as more of a communication device and not necessarily just a big billboard. And part of the process that we have here at Yoko is when we go through the persona building process, we have started to craft an AI persona. So before I go down this rabbit hole, Chris, can you just real quick, if there are individuals, if there are comms directors, marketing directors that are in the process of building their website, let's just start off with personas and kind of give maybe a 10,000 foot view of why personas are important.
So, I mean, if you're in a marketing or comms director job, hopefully you're at least familiar with the concept of personas. But if there are people out there who aren't, personas are just a good chance for you to get outside of your own perspective and inhabit the shoes and the mindset of your target audience, whoever they might be. So it's a good forcing function for you to think about who they might be. It started off, it was usually very like demographically driven. A lot of personas came off of media buying profiles. So like back in the day when you'd buy TV or radio ads, you're like, I want men 25 to 35 or whatever, because I want them to see our beer commercial or whatever. So, you would kind of drive off of a lot of demographic information. As media has become more interactive, people realize like, oh, when it comes to a relationship with a possible buyer, member, patient, client, consultant, whatever the case might be, there's a lot of opportunity to build that relationship asymmetrically online. And usually it's somebody's state of mind, location, where they're at in terms of their education, understanding of this thing, where they go for problem solving, all of that fun stuff ends up playing a much larger role than the demographic information. But you go through this process to draft who these people are representatively. So it's kind of an aggregated average of this buyer type. You'll usually have, we recommend between 3 and 5 for an organization, and then you can have various subtypes and stuff if needed. And they will include all the things around like, oh, they tend to mostly use their phone and they're catching up on work and they're doing a lot of meetings. Maybe we are targeting a website towards realtors. And so it's like, hey, they're on the run, they're busy, they need everything to work from their cell phone. If they can dig to the app, that's going to make it a little bit more useful. That might be very different from a physical therapist or somebody who's working inside of their office. They're on their feet all day. Maybe they do have a desktop and a phone that they're working with. It's just different scenarios, different mindsets people are working in. And this gives you a chance to not assume everyone used the website the way that you do, so that you can build the website from the outside in instead of the inside out.
Nice. Now, during this process, like Chris, you mentioned in years past, there's been very specific types of personas or models that you would go after. Hey, we're targeting, men between the ages of 22 to 35 or whatever, or women, or married individuals, or single individuals, or grandparents, or whatever it might be. What influenced you and the team at Yoko to have that realization that, hey, one of these personas needs to be an AI persona, needs to be targeted towards Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, so on and so forth?
Yeah. It happened kind of organically. So early in using these to drive the strategy behind a website, a lot of times people are very aware of who their primary audience is. We would usually try to force them to think more societally. Like, think about your social circle, everyone who is a not necessarily a shareholder, but a stakeholder in your ecosystem. And for a lot of the organizations we work with, there are a lot of people who may not be the client or the patient or the prospect or whatever themselves, but they are somebody who interacts with and maybe refers those people to our client. So if you are working with, I'll give credit, one of the folks over at Glassman Wealth, great financial advisement firm, they, financial advisors, they work in the financial ecosystem. Their clients are people who need someone to manage their money. But they also have centers of influence or referral agents. So people who might be estate attorneys. If somebody's inherited a lot of wealth and they don't know what to do with it, an estate attorney might say, hey, you might want to talk to somebody who, like, this is what they do, so you have a better understanding. You obviously don't have experience with this, whatever the case might be. And so for a lot of these types of clients, we would build out referral partner personas or center of influence personas to understand who these people are that are adjacent and still play a really large role in the success of the organization, maybe by providing referrals. And as we've been doing that more and more, the analytics, anyone who's paying attention to their analytics on their site sees that AI responses are really tanking and affecting organic traffic, especially for, we talked about the conversational spectrum last week or whatever, that really early stage conversational content, the oblivious and curious stuff, is now being answered more and less by large language models. And what we find is, in the same way that those center of influences may refer somebody who is a pretty ripe candidate to work with an organization, AI is doing that as well. They're answering a lot of the oblivious and the curious questions early in the phase, but as somebody starts to go like, okay, well, great, those are great answers, I want to move forward, and actually, who's the best partner for this? What's the best product to accomplish this thing? What kind of treatment should I be looking for? That's when you want to make a connection. And so by being really intentional about how we treat and speak with AI and treat them as a center of influence, you can be more intentional about how you possibly reap the rewards of having those referrals generated in the same way that you might have with SEO 10, 15, 20 years ago.
So I presume that, like, you could track your SEO and figure out what works and what doesn't work. Is there a way to do the same thing with AI and with tracking to see how, if you are building it a specific way, what is working and what is not working?
Yeah, it's not as mature an ecosystem, obviously, as SEO is. So like SEO tools, one, SEO is pretty deterministic, right? We know
Mhm.
that there is an algorithm and it might be personally tailored, and there's a lot of variables that are in play, but it is, for the most part, at least until recently, deterministic. So you would know if you were ranking really well for this search term, chances are you were ranking well for that search term for everyone who is searching for it. Um, AI is more of a stochastic system, so it is not as deterministic, and there's not as much history to kind of analyze there. So whereas a lot of folks have gotten really good at kind of reverse engineering what's happening in search and helping you understand how you show up and what signals you can tweak and levers you can pull to improve your rank, there's not as much of that in search. I mean, in the world of AI, but there are some tools, and a lot of them are, kind of the same tools that you used for SEO, because this is an evolution of that. So like Ahrefs, Moz, and SEMrush, I think, are all pretty decent tools for being able to help understand AI, like share of voice, as well as like overall sentiment. The other thing you can do is, even if you don't want to use one of those tools, you don't want to pay for it, is you can go through and just benchmark things yourself. For a lot of clients, we say, hey, take 5 minutes on the first Monday of each month and have a set of benchmark queries that you keep in a spreadsheet or something, pop them into the various LLMs, take the response you get, put it in the cell, and just keep the dates there. And you'll see, hey, if we have 10 people on our team do that, if we show up 3 times out of 10, then maybe we can ballpark that we're getting about 30% share of voice for this particular prompt. And is that waxing or waning over time? And then, of course, as you start to play around with things on your site and within the ecosystem as a whole, you can see if that's going up or down. It's, again, a stochastic system. Like, you're not going to know exactly what's happening, and it's evolving really quickly. So there's nothing to say, like, once you figure it out once, it's going to stay that way, which is why I think it's really frustrating to a lot of people. But it is also very clearly the way the world is moving. So if you're not advancing with it and paying attention to it, you're going to fall behind.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. Well, I don't want to spend too much time outside of something really cool that you have planned, because we are actually going to walk through, I say we, Chris is going to walk through how he and how our team builds a persona for an AI agent. And this is going to be, if you got a notebook and a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen or your iPad or your phone, whatever it might be, take some notes. This is going to be exciting. Chris is going to he's going to take over, screen share, and walk through the steps one step at a time. A lot of information is getting ready to come through. Chris, I'm excited. Are you ready?
You didn't tell me we were doing this today.
Okay, so we're going to come back from a short break, and then Chris is going to be
Let's jump into it.
How horrible would that be, right? Hey, he's playing this really great thing. No, I don't have any of that.
Today. You can call it. All right, let's see. You can either see my inbox or you can see our AI persona.
There you go. There is the AI/LLM Center of Influence.
Good deal. And so, this is the visual template we use to create a persona. I'm not going to go through the entire persona creation process. I know we have some videos on that we can share if people are interested, and we'll probably do an updated one of those, maybe like this, in the coming time. But for today, we're going to try to do a quick pass on how this is done for AI, and then we won't have time to get into all of it, but we'll talk a little bit about how we then leverage this as we go through and actually build out the site, the content, the things that we're doing both in front of and behind the curtain. So first things first, you want to understand a little bit about your persona themselves. So whenever this is done for like a human persona, it's like, what's the background of their profession or their job or their life, and what kind of goals do they have? And as we've said before on these calls, but if you haven't heard them, one of our goals as a partner to the organizations that we support is to help build the site in a way that very intuitively and naturally guides people to the intersection of what our clients offer and kind of their organizational goals, and what the individual desires or what they're trying to accomplish, their individual goals. And when you get someone to that intersection point, that is where engagement is the most effective. Conversions happen. Both parties feel happy, and it feels like a win-win because you're naturally guiding people to the things that they both want, which the most natural and long-lasting version of that is human conversation, having a conversation to figure out what's interesting to somebody else. What do you want? What do we want? How do we make that happen for each other? So that's kind of the model we use. This is an opportunity to get inside of those people's heads, as we had said, and understand what they want. When we're doing that for AI, we still do need to understand what they want. It's just in the same way that you think about it for search, it's a business. They have metrics, they have objectives. For search, I will say it's a little bit easier. One, there's a longer history there, but two, it's a proven business model, right? And it's working pretty well for Google.
Hey, Chris,
yeah,
real quick, would you be able to zoom in a little bit on that top half?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I think there's a lot of really great things that are written there, and I want to make sure that everybody can read it.
I'm not going to read them out loud to everybody. So on the side of search, there's a proven business model. Google takes a look at, hey, if we send somebody to a site that was really well ranked, and they bounce back, they're going to lose, and they're going to lose trust in us, and it's going to erode our authority as a good resource, a good search engine. But if people find what they want very quickly, and they tend to be sticking with the search results we give them, that works well. We show them ads, they keep coming back. So you can kind of think, hey, we want to make sure that if we rank well, and we can rank well by making sure we actually answer people's questions. We have a site that loads quickly so that they're not spending 4 or 5 seconds waiting it for load, and they just bounce back. So there are a lot of those kind of signals on the search side that make it very easy to understand how you can best align your site and your content with the business objectives of a search engine. When it comes to AI, they're not really making money yet, right? It just seems to be burning a lot of venture capital. You can get an idea of kind of where some of those business models are going to go if they don't achieve building the machine god first. They're going to need to layer in ads or find other revenue generating mechanisms beyond just the subscription model stuff that they have now. So this is a little bit more guesswork with more novel technology. But whenever we think about it, we know that some of the things that AI models want is more data. You consistently, if you're following AI at all in the media, you talk about how they are trying to collect more and more data, but you got to train these models on. They want to be able to, keep users engaged. If they do decide to convert over to any kind of like ad-driven engagement or subscription models, having high user engagement supports both of those business models. So whenever you think about like, okay, how would engagement differ on the AI side than it would on the search side, right? Because AI engagement can be just, I want you to keep chatting with the little robot and not necessarily click off to something. Most people click off either when they're ready to engage, which we'll talk about a little bit later, or they click off whenever they want to like cite a resource or like fact check the robot to make sure that it didn't hallucinate some piece of information that it's then citing, which still happens more often than I would like. And then lastly, as it's engaging with all this, it wants to continue to both produce and find novel data that it can then recycle back into more training data for the next model. So if you think about kind of those goals and you have them in mind as you think about how you want to interact with the AI through your website and through the ecosystem of the web as a whole, that's going to help you better align with their objectives, which will hopefully make you a better partner and show up more frequently in search. We'll talk a little bit more tactically about how to do that. But at a strategic level, that's good stuff to know. Again, I'm not going to go through all the pain points and read them aloud, but the things to be mindful of as like the pain points for an AI model is that they are not deterministic. So people are going to get different types of answers whenever they ask maybe even the same question over and over again. In a lot of cases, that's nice. It has some personality. It feels conversational. But if you're thinking about like, I want engineering content or science content or medical content or just good factual economic data or whatever, that can sometimes be a little bit frustrating. That parallels with the fact that they aim to be as accurate as possible. When you think about that accuracy component, the AI is not fact checking itself much. The frontier models will do some fact checking of the data that they've put into it and everything, but there's such high volumes that usually they're relying on other systems to do that or the type of testing they do with the models. So they tend to defer a lot of their trust signals and what they consider high authority content coming from institutions that they feel like they can trust. And so you can see like right now that basically includes like major publications, government agencies, although there was a report I read like a month or so ago that somebody's basically doing a whole slew of, benchmark queries and prompts on these search engines, on these AI models and seeing like, hey, where did you get this data? And apparently over the last several months, it's been using government agencies, at least here in the US, less frequently than was at the beginning of the year. I think that's pretty interesting. But then they also index very heavily on like institutions and aggregate bodies. So like associations, organizations like that are governing bodies or self-assembled governing bodies of different, industries, sectors, et cetera. And so whenever you think about that, again, like how does that help your organization? If they're relying on those places for trusted information, those are usually bodies you want to be a part of. If you're thinking about like PR efforts, those are usually the organizations you want to be reaching out to get a story in because those are the ones that are going to inspire some trust. If you can't get to those, sometimes I think in PR, I'm far from a PR expert, but you can kind of ladder up. So maybe you start with a article in a lesser known model body that isn't necessarily going to help you rank well for AI, but then you leverage that to the next one and the next one. And then eventually, maybe you get covered in the Wall Street Journal or something like that. So you understand what that looks like. The other pain point that I'm going to mention to keep in mind here is there's still a large debate about like copyright with these frontier models. So especially with a lot of the clients that we work with, they need to be really mindful of their intellectual property. And if they want to use or show up in AI, how much of that content do they want to give away freely? how much of it needs to be content that is gated, and what fits in kind of that messy middle, which is you can gate content but still provide preview access, and you can provide different types of previews to search engines, to AI, and to human users. And what we find with a lot of the clients that we work with is it behooves you to be very specific and differentiated in how you basically prepare and present that preview content in each of those three categories. So, it can be very helpful to say, hey, for human users, this is gated because it's maybe members only content in this case. And for AI, we don't want to give it all away, but we do want it to know like, hey, here is a decent corpus of knowledge on this topic. So maybe here's a preview or a summary of what this content is, especially for like major articles and big reports and stuff like that. And then for search engines, it might be, hey, we want them to index a lot of like the questions that would come up that this report answers. So we might think a little bit more specifically around certain data, facts and figures, headlines, things like that. That we would then make shareable. And so you can manage all of that and adjust all of those settings simultaneously within your website if you're setting things up correctly. So those are all things we use on the tech side to think about how we preview content. Jared, any questions or anything to pick up there before I go to the additional fields?
Getting ready to scroll down there for a second. You're like, let's see if there's anything.
Pause for a moment.
The only thing that jumps at me right now is I think a lot of this for an individual like yourself or our design and development team that we have at Yoko, this is all very straightforward, very easy. We understand it, which is fantastic. For those organizations, for those groups that maybe this is new, like you had mentioned, like this is they're still developing, they're still figuring things out. We're not 25 years, 30 years into this, like SEO is, where, you understand how the whole process works. When you look at those pain points and when you look at the goals that you have for those orgs, for those associations, those individuals that don't have a background in web development and AI and things of that nature, could you maybe give, and you did a good job of like, hey, 5 minutes on a Monday, go through and do like a real quick, hey, these are the questions that we're looking for. Once they find out those responses, what would be like a really simple softball next step once they have those responses? What would you recommend jumping into your website and starting to apply, which direction they want this stuff to go? What's going to be the best next step for them in regards to, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing?
Sure. The fun answer is always like, it depends. So it depends on your findings there. But one of the things that we usually recommend most people do is like, once you have a benchmark and you have an understanding of, hey, we seem to show up about this much, whether you've done it manually or with the tools that are available, is play around with the idea of like prompt mirroring. So, basically thinking about the types of questions that your, more human personas might ask an AI model, and then actually make that part of your FAQ page or something with a page that you want to rank on that topic. Start to insert those questions. We've been playing around with doing them as headings in the page, and then the answer being the body text that supports it. Mm-hmm. And have seen, again, this is firsthand data, so we don't have like a huge consensus on this, but with the work that we've done on it, we've seen it improve both share of voice around like especially those very specific prompts. So in the same way that search seemed to have a like exact match bonus, you would show up better if you had content that was an exact match for what was being searched. There seems to be some remnant of that in terms of efficacy on the AI side as well.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So we know about the AI. We have the personas starting to be built. Got the background. We have the goals. Have the pain points. Walk us through what's the next section of our AI persona. I feel like we need to give a name to this AI persona. Is there a name that you would like to go with?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like any name I come up with is going to be biased. Do you have one?
Okay, then we're just going to go with something straightforward. Carl.
Carl. All right. Hey there, Carl. So the other things we want to know about Carl are that help inform our thinking as we're going through this process. And again, usually when we're doing this, we're doing it in conjunction with the client team. So we're all talking about this. And the idea is, again, to take ourselves out of our personal perspectives and put ourselves in their perspective. So that's already fairly difficult for people to wrap their head around just when they're doing it for another human. It's like, hey, try to forget all of your natural tendencies, experiences, and biases for 30 minutes and pretend to be this person who is living life that, yes, in so much as we're all human, has some similarities, but is very different from yours. And now let's try to live a life that's like not even human, is going to be very alien for people. So it's going to
Yeah.
be a difficult, challenging process. It's intended to be. But the other things that are useful to orient around whenever you're thinking about strategy around personas is where are they getting their information? If you follow articles about AI and stuff, you can hear like all of them are kind of fighting for being able to crawl the web and get all the content that they can. Some have been trying to like go into libraries and scan all of the books. Others have been trying to buy those books. Others have been like taking transcripts of all the songs and stuff and trying to pull all this stuff into data that they can just feed into these AI models. But some of the most common sources of information for the frontier labs, they have a lot of private data sources, a lot of scraping that they're doing on their own. There are open source data sources. Some of the bigger ones are like Common Crawl. So that's a very big one. Wikipedia, Book Corpus, etc. And whenever you think about those, like the private data sources, we don't know enough about those to be able to use that effectively. It's just good to know that like they're out there.
Hmm.
On the open data sources, Common Crawl, like you can take a look and see like, okay, have they crawled our site before? What kind of content have we had historically? What might these models be thinking about us based on the information they have that was scraped? What ChatGPT was famously like, oh, I only have content up to this date for a long time, before they let it have unfettered access to the web. If you have a Wikipedia page, or if you've had one, that's usually being factored in and is usually a pretty high authority trust signal. If you don't have a Wikipedia page, getting one can be helpful. If you're any kind of a publisher, or if you have somebody in the organization who's written a book or something, Book Corpus is another good one. If you're more of a scientific or medical organization, or like economic, or anyone who's publishing any kind of data, those public data sources where information is published are usually used for crawls. The older versions of kind of search are not gone. It's more or less the foundation AI is being built on top of in terms of data. So all of them are associated with a search engine of their own. So like Claude, I believe, is paired up with Brave. Gemini obviously is with Google. ChatGPT with Bing. And then there's also like, hey, how are we getting access to this additional information that's more novel? So a lot of the different AI organizations have made deals with publishers and media outlets and journalism outlets. And then I think it was last year, maybe the year before, Google made a deal with Reddit to basically be like, hey, we want to be the only one who can index and have people search our platform to get content from Reddit as well. So there's all these kind of deals where people are trying to get this information. And again, it's useful for you to be aware of it so that you can kind of think about like, okay, once we build out our site and we think about the web as this open, connected thing, how do we make sure that we have content in these other places where it is likely to be fed into these AI models, so there is awareness of us. When you think about, again, guiding people to the intersection of what our client or the organization is looking for, and in this case, what the AI company is looking for, you got to think about basically how you get them there and how you're in alignment with one another. So to rank well for if it is known content, not novel. So it's like, hey, we're a commercial painting organization or something, and we want to show up, there can be having high authority scores, and that can serve nationally, like if you're serving nationally, but it also works pretty well locally. A lot of the AI models, nobody in LA wants to hire a painter who's like, yep, we do New York, 5 boroughs. It's obviously going to be a waste of time. So there's a pretty decent trust and authority signals you can have both locally and nationally. The local ones tend to be more like review driven, Google Maps, Yelp, Facebook, stuff like that. If you are attempting to rank for novel information, being able to think about, hey, we're publishing some groundbreaking information, so some stuff that is truly net new and novel, that will help. It will be discovered and uptaken more quickly if you can then get that covered in other like large bodies. So if you're a member of an association and you're publishing some new research, having them endorse it and publish it is going to be a big get in that regard. If you can get articles or media interested in it and covering it, and then if there's a flurry of social media posts, et cetera, around it, like you want that kind of maelstrom around, especially novel content, and ideally stuff that is linking back to you, saying like you were the source to help position you as an authority there. So that's what you can think of from like, again, the strategic point of view. That dovetails a little bit with the tactical on the front end of the site. And then on the back end, we want to think about all the metadata. So how are we making sure that this content has the right taxonomy, understanding what it is, to who it might be shown to. Open graph and then schema is a really big one, especially for AI models, is understanding that to you or I, a web page can be a recipe or a product or a person or a video or a song. Schema helps you better kind of understand that and put a lot more metadata and kind of designators around that content so that AI can kind of more thoroughly understand what it is to the human user who might be using it. And then what do we need them to do? You want to be able to understand what success looks like in your engagement with AI. So for different types of organizations, it's going to look very different, but to just kind of follow the path we've been using so far, in this case, it would be, hey, we want them to have good information that they can use to answer those kind of oblivious and curious questions. And whenever somebody starts to get intrigued or invested and says, hey, who's the best fitness instructor or financial advisor? What's the best organization to become a member of for this industry or to get this certification, whatever the case might be, when people are ready to take action on something, to introduce them to your organization is usually a pretty common goal. And so being able to understand what that looks like, what your benchmark is, and then being able to use all this information to take action to change that, and then ideally help increase your scores from where you're at in terms of that initial benchmark.
So, I mean, I think the big question that everybody has, in my opinion, is AI going anywhere? Like, should I invest the time? Should I put forth the time and effort and energy into building out my website to talk to AI agents, or in 3-4 years, is it going to be gone? I mean, I've got my own personal viewpoints on it, but I would love to know from you, like, is this going anywhere? Like, do we need to really give it some serious attention?
It's clearly a dead end. It's not going anywhere. It's a bubble. It's going to implode. Now, I mean, I don't think.
There's the clip, by the way. That's what everybody's going to take right there, is just that and share it.
Just share that bit. I mean, obviously, I'm not enough of an expert to be able to say this with any kind of authority, but it doesn't feel like the current process of like just stack more computing power on this is ever going to get us to like advanced super intelligence. But even what we have right now is like pretty game changing.
Yeah.
I mean, considering what had happened, like it's been just now about 3 years that this technology has existed and went from like absolute awe-striking novelty to, hey, how come your product doesn't have, like, it's just a thing people feel entitled to, like it's become a commodity super quickly. When it comes to thinking about, hey, how's it going to change the world? Is it going to stay like this, or is it going to become more and more complex? I don't know, but I think we've seen so much change in the last couple years that if you're not at least trying to catch up with where things are and where they're going, you're just going to be left further and further behind. The stuff we've talked about today is like a really good way to kind of like, hey, let's start to be on top of it without feeling like we have to throw everything at the wall or do everything all at once, but let's have a really intentional and meaningful strategic approach and a handful of things that within 4 to 12 hours, like people hours a month, we can make a concentrated effort and ideally be making progress on this front, especially if you're working with a partner to build out like the strategical and tactical things. And then, I mean, if you look at the way the web is evolving in the same way that like responsive design was like a new big thing, but 10, maybe more than 10 years ago at this point. It was maybe closer to 15. It was like, oh, this is novel. It's going to work well on for a long time. We just thought like websites suck on phones, and then we made them better. The same thing is happening now with like data modularity and APIs, where data is just becoming increasingly decoupled from like the front end web interface. And you have, Jamstacks and headless installs and a lot of different ways that you can feed content to different types of interactive front ends and automated, used to be just algorithmic, software on the back end, but now increasingly agentic AI. So if you're following this also gives you the ability that if at some point you just need to have an AI layer that answers agentic AI queries, gives them the right answer, and then feeds that to them, and it never actually touches the front end of your website or something, my guess is that's where some of this starts to go, be it through automated means like an API, or through spoken means where more people are going to start to have conversations with your website through voice assistants and stuff like that. And that could be a good forcing function to get you a little bit ahead of the game of like, okay, if somebody had to have a conversation with my website, they were driving in the car or something, I can't give them the benefit of like the easy to use UX that we set up. Like a menu is clearly easier than going to a restaurant and saying like, hey, AI, what are all the dishes that you have? And hearing them all listed out and be like, what were the first 5? Because I forgot them. Like visual interface is highly advantageous, but as things continue to evolve, I think it's going to become increasingly decoupled. So this is advantageous for you, whether it's just something you want to do now and kind of catch up to the, kind of place where things are now, or if it's something where you want to start to build this foundation of future proofing. So it's not an onerous thing where you have to try to catch up and basically rebuild everything in 2 or 3 years, whatever the case might be, to try to get to a more modern standard.
That's fair. That's fair. And that makes sense. It really does make sense.
Where do you think it's going to go?
Oh, I wholeheartedly am like, it's the second wave of the internet. Like I love it. I love AI. I love watching organizations try to incorporate it into how I can interact with them. So it's replaced my initial Google search. If I were to search for something online, I'm not going to Google first anymore. I am opening up ChatGPT, asking my question as detailed as I possibly can, and then hitting send, and then asking for its sources, and then utilizing those sources that it's telling me. So I don't see it.
Don't ask it what belt to use on your dryer if it breaks down.
Did you do that?
Yes.
Okay.
It had been pretty good about like other appliance repairs. So I was like, I'm sure it's fine. And I decided like not to fact check it this one time. Get the whole thing torn apart. And I put the new belt on and it's like 3 inches too small. And I'm like, oh, what the hell? So then I pull up the engineering spec and it's like, yep, it's the wrong belt. And then I go back to the thread and I was like, hey, robot, why don't you tell me to use this belt? And it was like, oh, you're absolutely right. My bad. You should use this belt instead. Thanks.
ChatGPT is the most affirming, like, yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. I was wrong on that one. It'll never, ever say, no, I think you're wrong on this one, which I kind of wish that they would create some sort of an interface that would just stay firm with what it thinks. Hey, ChatGPT, what do you feel about this color? I don't like it. I don't know. I think it's a pretty good color. No, you're wrong, Jared. You're wrong. You're never going to be right about this. All right.
I'm sure with time. I mean, they already give you now the selector where you can kind of choose the style you want it to engage in.
Yep.
My guess is over time, it's going to be like, do you want to talk to multiple ones that have like different personalities? There's a really good podcast called Shell Game with a guy who he's basically building a company, but he's supposed to be the silent founder. So he's doing it all with AI agents and just like trying to do, let's see how far they can go. And he's got like 2 AI partners and like 6 AI employees. And the podcast, you hear all of them like having conversations and stuff. And it's an interesting experiment in like how far the stuff can go, but it does give you a glimpse of like what's really possible and where it might go.
Is it like the AI office? Is it just, do they have personalities to that degree?
Not to that degree, but like one of them is like, we'll make up stuff that they do over the weekend. And the other one's like a total like hustle bro. So it's like, I didn't really do anything this weekend, was just working on, looking at these figures or whatever. And of course, like the host of the show is like, just to be clear, none of them have weekends. They weren't doing anything.
So we'll see in a couple of years. I'm intrigued. If you're watching this, drop it in the comments. Let us know where do you think AI is going in the next, 2 to 4 years, somewhere in that range before we hit by 2030. 2030 will be the next big 10-year mark. So let's see what happens at that point. Also, if this is a lot and you're watching this and you're like, there's no way that I know how to do any of this stuff, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help you with that. So you can reach out to us online at yokoco.com. There'll be contact information down below. You can reach me or Chris on LinkedIn. You can message us directly through there. If there's something that we can do to help you, encourage, support, and empower you, that's what we're looking to do. So, man, Chris, this was fun. I appreciate you and Carl and just all of the adventures that we've gone through. I feel like we've had highs and lows and everything in between, and it's been a fun journey.
I appreciate you setting it up and of course giving us a name for dear Carl.
Yeah, gotta have Carl. All right, everybody, be safe, have fun, and we'll see you next time.
See you then.